Join us now. For some reason, she was in the waiting room. So hopefully she's going to join us now and we'll be all good to go. So come on in, everybody. Karen, hopefully you're going to join us now. We are live, Karen, when you join us. I don't know why you were put in a waiting room, but apparently you were. So hopefully you're coming in now. Let's just see if I can see you. Okay, you're not there yet, Karen. Hopefully you're on your way. We're having a few tech issues just trying to get Karen in. So I decided to go live in the webinar on the basis that she is on her way. But we're just trying to sort that out for her. So she was busy judging for BIP today, BIPP. So it was, oh, here we go. I bet you this is Karen now. Hello, Karen. Can you hear me? How are you? We're live, just to let you know. So don't do what I would do and curse or anything like that, right? How are you?
I'm good. Technology at its best, Ronan. What can I say?
I know, Karen, but sure, we're live on Facebook anyway. So I told him you were on your way, that you were busy. So what were you doing today?
Oh, well, today I'm in Preston at the British Institute for Professional Photography for their qualifications. So we've had 2 days of qualifications and I've been helping out on that. It's been amazing. So we've just finished 2 long days and yes, here I am.
So that must have been challenging with all the rules about social distancing and all that. Was that difficult to organise?
Yeah, it's Martin, who's the CEO, has had everything in place. Everything has been social distance. The judges have been social distance, hand sanitizer, gloves, masks, everything. So yeah, it's been tricky. But I think as well, you know, the last 6 months, people haven't been able to do that. And they've had panels planned, they've spent a lot of money, judges haven't been able to judge, a lot of things go online. And I think when you actually come to submitting associate panels and also fellowship panels, I do think they need printing. So yeah, I think it was done properly. It was done with the government guidelines and it went ahead. So it was a good day. And I have to say, in all fairness, I put a fellowship panel in myself and not a lot of people talk about that, but I wasn't successful this time, but it's not going to stop me going for it again. And I had great feedback, but as a director of the association, then the institute, then I will be doing it again. It hasn't put me off.
Yes, no, because you know that happens to us all, doesn't it? That we learn from these things, and we listen. Nobody makes more mistakes in life than me. If there's a business mistake that's been made, I've made it. I promise you that. I promise you that. But you learn so much from that, don't you? You get great feedback as to what you do to get your fellowship next time around.
Yeah, the feedback's been invaluable, and do you know what? A lot of people don't get their fellowship the first time round. They just don't. There's a lot to learn. And I have learned a lot, and I've been around the judging and I've had the feedback, not only from my panel, but everyone else. You know, it's been 2 days. There's been, I think it was 14 qualifications. And I wasn't the only one unsuccessful. The standards are high and they've got to be high in the industry. Those standards have got to be maintained. So I agreed with what they said, and onwards and upwards. I know what I'm doing in my head. I know what I'm doing next time, but I'll give it a little break.
I've no doubt that there won't be a problem next time. I've no doubt.
No.
You know, like we have my daughter here, our eldest daughter, our number 2 of 4, as we call her, Erin. She's just done her accountancy finals, so she's waiting for her results next Friday. And I said to her, you know, I think it's only 40% or 50% past their finals first time. And I said, you know, we know you've tried your best, you've worked hard, and that's all you can do. And you learn from these things. So don't be upset if it doesn't work out the way you want. Yes, yes.
No, exactly. And do you know what? The first 2 people I told were my girls. I've got 2 girls, 14 and 16. So one's in her now GCSE year and one's in her A-level year. And I said, so I had 2 very different reactions. I had one from one daughter that said, oh no, really? But you're the best photographer there is. I was like, oh, that's really sweet, but you've got to learn onwards and upwards. And my other daughter went, oh, well, you know what to do next time. So, you know, the very grounded. I think you've got to show your children that as well, that it's all right not to be successful first time. And if you get knocked, then you just get back up and you try again. And I think going forward in life, to teach those and instill that in the young coming through, it's a good thing to have, really.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Karen, before we get into the rise of women in photography, and we'll talk a little bit about that, I want to go back in time with you. So, when did you first fall in love with photography?
Oh, well, I'm going to say I'm a bit of a cliche here, but I love how I got into it. My girls were born, so I've just said they're 14 and 16. So before I was a photographer, I haven't always been a photographer, but before that, I was in beauty therapy, and I'd done that for 18 years. I'd had my own salon. I employed 10 staff. I used to teach at college. So I was very successful within that world. And when I had the children, I decided that I couldn't have the children and work to the extent that I was working. So I decided to step back from that and bring the girls up. But when they were babies, I just picked up a camera to record their history, really. And it was from that I fell in love with it. And I went to night school and I studied for 3 years in the evening, while also doing lots online and shadowing people, going to weddings, second shooting. And that's when I fell in love with it.
Very good. So, you said there that you started to do some weddings. Was that after the children? Was that what the first time to get paid for photography was, doing weddings as a second shoot?
No,
No.
no. So what I did shadow people. I did different genres of photography to find out where I was going to lie. And because I enjoyed shooting my children at the time, I thought, well, why don't I do nursery photography? Why don't I photograph children? How hard can that be? Well, that was a bit of a mistake. It's really hard. And I tried to step outside of the box from the normal child sat in front of background and doing that. So I did environmental portraiture for the nurseries. And I did it really successfully, actually, for a couple of years. And I earned a lot of money at it, to be fair, Ronan. But I just thought, it's not for me. I enjoy it. I'm getting the money, but my heart's not in it. And I'd already second shot on a couple of weddings, not paid. So I was getting paid for the nursery things. It wasn't what I loved doing. So I thought, I'm going to try a wedding. But the first wedding I did, my cousin said, can you shoot our wedding? And I think she was thinking that I was going to do it free of charge. And I said, yeah, I can do that. So this is quite the beginning of my journey in photography. And I said, but I will be charging, I've got to cover my costs. It'll be £500. So my first wedding, never shot a wedding really on my own before. I'd just kind of second shot and I was assisting. So I went on this wedding solo and I loved it. I loved absolutely everything about it. So my first wedding on my own, I got paid. It was a family member. And they always say there's no friends in business, and that goes for family as well, I think, a little bit. So that was my first one, and I carried on second shooting, and then I went on workshops for wedding photography. So I would say that I've stood alone now on wedding photography and been successful within that line, probably 11, 12 years now. I'm coming into my 12th year of weddings.
Right. And a lot of photographers shy away from weddings, Karen, because, you get one chance, don't you? If it doesn't go right, there's no
absolutely.
like you can with a portrait or a newborn shoot or something like that. So do you feel the pressure at weddings to always, that that is there, that you have to get this right? There's one chance only.
Yeah, absolutely. I have never been complacent within my photography. And I actually think if you don't have those nerves, I get nervous before every single wedding, and I still do. And I think if you don't have those nerves, it doesn't do you good. I think those nerves, I'm confident with a wedding. I know weddings inside out, but I don't think if you have those nerves, you don't keep your eye on the ball, you become complacent. And I never want to be in that place. If
Well,
I'm in that place, then I think it's time to hang my camera up, really.
But it's really interesting you should say that, because there's it's the longest running chat show in the world. It's an Irish chat show called The Late Late. You probably haven't heard of it over there. but there was a guy, Gay Byrne, he passed away last year, I think it was, but I think he was the host of the Late Late for 40 years or something like that. So, and he said even in his 40th year, he got exactly that. He was like, just what you said, you know, he had the butterflies in his stomach before he went out, even then, you know, and that gave
Yeah.
him the edge. So it's really interesting you should say that.
Yeah. And
So
it doesn't, I'm not like that, you know, generally in life, but I do think I like to live on the edge a little bit, because I do think that that gives you that drive, and I'm always striving for the next thing. And within weddings, I'm always looking for that next shot. So I stay on edge the whole wedding day. And we know with that industry, and that genre of photography, you're shooting 12 hours a day. That's what wedding photography is now. You don't turn up and just do the church and some portraits and a mock-up of a cake. You're there for the entire day. In fact, you're probably one of the only vendors that day that, you know, the bride and groom are with you more than they are with each other, aren't they? And I hold those nerves the whole day, even until I finish the last dance. And then I get in my car, and I know that people always say, oh, you must have got some brilliant shots today. And I'm like, well, I'll know when I upload them. You know, I never take it for granted that I've got the shot.
and do you think that there's a link there to, you know, your previous business life in the hair and beauty, that you're only as good as your last session, even when you're doing that, you know? Because I know what my wife, if she goes to somewhere and her hair's not right or her makeup's not done right, that's it. She's never doing that again. So do you
Yeah.
think there was some sort of, do you think that helped prepare you for this?
Yeah, do you know what? I've always had attention to detail, and I think doing the previous profession that I did have attention to detail. I mean, I used to teach at the college. I taught students how to do beauty, hair and makeup, massage. I used to teach business and anatomy and physiology as well, and there was always attention to detail. Never missed that, and that has carried me through. And I think this goes maybe on a little bit to women, that I do think, and I'm not ruling out men on this by any means, Ronan, so I hope nobody writes in, but I do think as women, you do have that attention to detail. You just see those tiny little things, and that carries me through my work.
And so you think being a woman doing wedding photography is an advantage in the main?
I think it can be, and don't get. Do you know what? Some of the best wedding photographers that I see in the world are men, and I aspire to be as great as they are. You know, so I'm not going to say that that statement is true, but I do think that women have that attention to detail, just tiny little things. It might be, as you say, that, you know, the hairs that just need straightening down. It might be, can you go and touch your lipstick up? It might be, oh, your hem's not right somewhere, or the flowers aren't quite right. You know, I'm attention to detail with buttonholes. I'll make sure that all the men in the morning have got their buttonholes on the right way. I carry little sewing kits and tissues and everything in my bag, so if there's anything that needs fixing, I'm there to fix it. So I'm not saying that men don't do that, and there are men that do, and I'm not saying it makes them a better wedding photographer, but it certainly helps that they've got that eye for detail.
Very good.
I
So,
mean, you've got to look at the way some women have. I always remember that there's a little phrase that is used very commonly, and it's you know, men have houses, women have homes, and that's just sometimes I think those detail bits. And men, you know, they look at you and kind of, oh, can you just do that for me? Because the way you do it, it looks so much better. And I just think sometimes there is that attention detail thing. And I think men get very technical. You know, men hands down would beat me all day long on technicalities. You start talking to me technical and you've lost me.
well, I can't talk to you about technology when it comes to photography, because I can't even take a selfie. So I'm not going to put you in any trouble there. I promise you.
Oh, good.
You're not way above where I can go with that. but Karen, I'd like to go back to the wedding thing again. So obviously you're very fit. You know, we can see that by looking at you. But a lot of people say that weddings can be you know, that they're very physical, and you know they take a lot of energy, and you're on the go all the time. Have you ever, and I'm not saying all men are fitter than women, that's not the case, but men are regarded as being maybe stronger or stuff just because of our physical makeup. Have you ever had that as a challenge as a wedding photographer? Or?
No, and you know, the kit that I carry around, that is like between 12 and 15 kilos during the day. That is kind of the average weight of my kit. I haven't gone to mirrorless, so I haven't got that lighter kit yet. And I'm not sure if I will. I like the kit that I've got. I'm a Canon user. I use great lenses, so there's heavy glass in there, and everything else that you have. And I've never had a problem with carrying that, but I do think you have to look after yourself. And I'm not going to say what age I am. It can probably be worked out, to be honest, on things that I've already told you. But I don't think that comes into play, to be quite honest. I'll carry my own kit up and downstairs, almost running up and downstairs with it. I don't think that has a factor, to be honest.
Very good, very good. So so as well as weddings, do you do portraiture as well?
Yeah, I do portraiture and corporate work. So typically people will know me as a wedding photographer, but I would say my day-to-day, I don't do any more than 20 weddings a year, and they're selective clients. But my day-to-day, Monday to Friday work will be corporate work, and that of headshots, branding photography. I work with web designers to create things for websites and the sites that they're designing. A lot of my clients are high end, which is really lovely. And that comes down to branding. We all know about branding, don't we? And knowing your position in the market. So yeah, I do portraiture and corporate, and I love that, actually.
Very good.
And I'm not going out for 12 hours in the day doing it. So it's sometimes, you know, I price my corporate work either on an hour, a half day, or a full day. But I have to say, going back to the gender bias on that, Ronan, is that there's been a few jobs that I've been turned down for corporately because I'm not a male photographer, or I haven't. So there's a big company that everyone will know, and I was asked to. Sorry, am I all right with this little story?
Of course, just don't mention the company.
I'm not going to mention the company, but there's a big company and they're very well known. And I was asked by a charity, it was paid work, but I was asked by a charity to go and photograph for this company. And they said, no, don't worry, we've got our own photographers. And this lady said, no, I've used Karen for many years. I trust Karen. She knows the type of thing we look for. She's within our brand. We'd like to use her. So it was a bit like this back and forward, and they said, right, that's not a problem. So when this company, so they came to assist, not photography wise, they just wanted to make sure that I understood what they wanted. So they came along and I said, can I ask how many female photographers you've got? So it's a huge multinational company, and they have a bank of 50 photographers. And I 50? Said, can I just ask 50, 50. Right,
okay, yes.
Yeah, so that they kind of second out to do different PR jobs. I said, can I ask how many female photographers you've got, and how many would you think they might have? How many would you think, maybe?
From what you've just said about your reaction, it's probably 0, but I would have expected it to be, you know, if I look at what I see in the photography industry now across other genres, you'd expect it to be more than 60%, you know.
Yes, so this was only last year, so just before lockdown. So a company of 50 photographers just on their books to be seconded, not one single one was a female photographer.
And why do you think that is?
The type of market that was in, it's commercial. It was commercial work, big commercial client, and I just think that is still very male dominated. And it is changing. Like you said, there are a lot more women in the industry than there are men, to be honest. But there is still that gap.
And do you think the opposite is in, say, in newborn photography, that there's more women doing newborn because they might fit with that type of emotional connection with the baby? I know if I had a newborn, it's a long time since I had a newborn. My youngest is 18, but I think I would be more comfortable when my children were newborns with a woman photographer. And I don't know whether that's right or wrong to think, or do you
Yeah.
think there's something in that?
I maybe it's that motherly instinct that you have, and you know, everyone's heard that term. You have that motherly instinct, and there certainly are a lot more newborn female photographers than there are male. But interestingly, actually, maybe on the newborn side, but as those babies get older, then they're, you know, that's that kind of where they're here for newborn females, it then starts to come more like this with portraiture, doesn't it? It starts to even out a little bit more as they become toddlers and start running around. So I think that, yeah, I think as well, some of that comes down to patience, Ronan. I think women are very patient when they're photographing. They will just wait. I mean, I don't do newborns, and when I said I started out doing working with children, you've just got to wait and be patient. And I know newborn photographers that will wait for an hour until that baby's sound asleep, and then they'll start the shoot. And I don't know, maybe men find that part of it a little bit difficult. I'm not sure. But yeah, there's certainly a lot more women that do newborn than men.
And back to the commercial, why do you think it's in that example? I don't know if that's typical of all commercial photography, but in that example, why do you think it was all men? Was it that the marketing director was male, or the person who was responsible for it, and that's what they've been exposed to, or what's your feeling on it?
Do you know what? I've been trying to work this out because there's a couple of things within this company that typically it's a male dominated product that they're selling, and their workforce is primarily men. So this isn't it's not a photography company, it's a product that they sell.
Yes.
So their workforce is predominantly men. They haven't got any females at the top, but their marketing strategy is they sell to women.
Right, because I was going to ask that, is it a male product, you know? Because you could imagine, say, a Harley Davidson company,
Yeah.
and your company's not Harley Davidson, right? I've just put that out.
No, it's not.
Because I don't know who it is. So if I mention a
Yeah.
company, it's not that I know who it is. So
Yeah.
a Harley Davidson, you might think, one marketing director might think, well, I want a male photographer because I'm appealing to men. And then another marketing director like me might say, you know what? I want a female photographer because I want the bike to look sexy to the man.
Yeah.
You know, and they're two
Yeah.
different sort of mindsets, aren't they? So it's
Yeah.
I suppose, yeah.
Definitely. No, it's a product that is aimed at men
Okay.
primarily, but their marketing strategy is the aim at women. If they can get the women on the board with their marketing strategy, they've sold that product.
Right. It's
Yeah.
interesting, isn't it? I'd love to deep
Yeah.
dive because I love research. I love the question I ask myself every day. I think the most powerful word in the world after love is why. You know, why is that? I love to deep dive to figure out why is that the case there. So
Yeah.
it's interesting. So, and I know that, and we get to Rise in a second, your organization. But before we go there, I know that I think I read a press release somewhere when Rise was starting about in the fashion world that it tends to be dominated by male photographers as well. I know nothing about the fashion world, as you can see by what I'm wearing. But is that true? Is it an issue there as well?
Yeah, it is, and that is changing. It is changing, and as you say, we'll come on to Rise. But interviews that I've done, women that have come to the forefront themselves, and within that fashion market, 85% of magazine covers are shot by men. Um, and I haven't, like you just said, what's the why behind that? And I don't know what the why is, because typically a lot of fashion is aimed at women. Now, I know that men have fashion, we all know that. But you see catwalks, and they're predominantly women that are going up and down the catwalks. You look at fragrances, women have so many more fragrances. You've just got to look at women's shoes and handbags. There's so many more shoes and handbags. The magazines on shelves are predominantly aimed at women. Obviously, you've got the interest magazines, but those magazines are actually being shot by men. Now, that would be classed really as being in the commercial world. And as we know, commercially, men do a lot more shooting commercially than women. So it's certainly a big topic.
I'm trying to think of another industry where we see that. And the one that's coming into my head right this second, I haven't thought about this until now, but is quite often the chefs. You see a lot of Michelin star chefs, and that they tend to be male, don't they?
Yeah.
Too. I wonder why that is. Is there a link there at all, do you think?
I don't know. And do you know what? Somebody asked me that question the other day, actually, about chefs and Michelin stars, and that there are a lot more male chefs than there are female chefs. You don't really hear that. The ones that you hear, they have been around a long time, haven't they? They've created that brand, they've stepped outside of the box, and they're willing to be seen and heard. Yeah, I don't know why that is, because obviously with Michelin stars, we're going back to that detail. They have that finesse and they have that detail, don't they? So it's not as though, I was going back to saying earlier, it's not as though men haven't got that. I don't know what it is.
And I know I don't eat in Michelin star restaurants very often, but I've one client who comes over from the UK, and he used to love a certain restaurant, which was a Michelin star restaurant in Dublin. So we used to go there. It's since closed, but they were a husband and wife team. So he was the chef, but she was always front of house, and it gets back to that, what we were talking a little bit earlier about. Sometimes women are more, they can be friendlier and so that's interesting.
They connect the emotions. So she'll be connecting front of house and creating that emotion and that experience, as he's creating great food. And whether that balance will ever change, I'm not sure. The old saying, is it men are from Mars, women are from Venus? There is truth in that, and the brains are wired differently. And will it ever change? I think things are changing for the better, but maybe nature, that's just the way it is. It's certainly not nurture, because women do want to be doing the same jobs. So it's not nurture, because that is definitely changing. But whether nature actually allows for that, I'm not sure.
Because we are seeing in the schools, we certainly are in Ireland, I don't know what it's like in the UK or in America, but we're seeing that in the state exams, the countrywide exams to get into university, that girls are outperforming boys at subjects like math and science and stuff. So you're absolutely right. It's not that while in the past most engineers were men, and you go, that does not add up for me. And so it's interesting. It really is interesting. So before we get on to Rise, just something in passing. I know PPA in America, and I'm 51 this year. I was 51 this year in March. So I've been around the industry for some time, even though I've come and gone a little bit because I was involved in other industry as well along the way. But one of the things I've noticed is that the change where if I go back 30 years ago, it was rare you saw a woman professional photographer. And now I think it's in PPA, I think 60 or 65% of their membership are women, while
Yeah.
20, 30 years ago, it was 96% were men. So why do you think that's happening?
I think, and I know a lot of men actually that are now staying home and being the parent of children and bring them up, and they want to do that. And I actually think it's quite nice that men feel they can do that, and it's actually not a woman thing to do. So I think it's always been that men go out to work and provide, women stay at home and look after children. And if they can do a job that fits in with that, then that's great. That has definitely changed. And I think, or is changing. And I do think men think, well, why can't men stay at home and do that? And women go out to work. So I think that mindset is changing. And along with that comes all the other careers with it. I think women have decided that they'd like to try different professions. I mean, you go to the police force, don't you? And there's a lot more women now that you see in the police force. There's women that are rising to the top within the ranks of the police force. And I think within photography, women just think, well, why not? It's an amazing creative industry to be in. I love the industry that we're in. And why not? You know, sometimes I think women, you start with your partners, you go on a career path, you have children. Clearly, there's nothing that can be done about women have the children. It's a fact of life, which is where I'm going on to. You know, nature dictates that women have children. So they often come to a point in their career where that has to stop. It doesn't always stop, but it comes to a standstill while you have your children. And then I think women decide that they want to change career paths, and they naturally want to go into photography and something creative and do something that works around the children. And I think maybe that's why they choose that. But a lot more women as well are deciding to go in it straight from school. You know, there's a lot more opportunities. You can do or be anything you want to be. And I think the schools and education advocate that as well.
So before we talk about Rise, I just want to talk something else on the educational front that you mentioned a little bit earlier. So you mentioned that when you were doing the beautician and the hair and you were studying that in the university, you were sorry, not studying it, teaching it, I mean, to other students. And there was also a business aspect to that. Do you know, I know in Ireland, the last time I looked, all the photography degrees and training had not one iota, 1 minute of business training.
Yeah.
Yet the industry you started in does. What are you seeing in the UK now in the you know, the universities? Or are you seeing, are they bringing business into it, or is it still staying very much this is an artistic discipline and you don't need to know anything about that?
Do you know, I think within education it's changed a lot. I wrote the module for business actually for the beauty industry. And I do think it changes a lot. I mean, my girls 14 and 16, what they're covering business, I did business at school for GCSEs when it first came out. And nowhere did I cover the amount of business that my girls do now. I just think even at school level, they're teaching you a lot more about business and getting out in the world of business. And I think you're right that there are some industries that don't teach that if you're going into the creative sector. And I do know, even with Rise, it's the business side of things that photographers want to know about rather than the creative side. There's a lot of videos that can go and watch and do that. And you might find this with what you do. And I know that you advocate the business of photography so much. That is kind of your anchor, isn't it? If you haven't got business, how can you go out and get these products and those clients that you want and sell on? You have to know business. So I think people are becoming savvy about business. I'm not sure why it's not taught along with creative sectors, but it definitely should be part of it. And that is a big anchor to what I do with Rise.
So what a great lead into Rise. So tell people what Rise is first, and then maybe you can say where the inspiration for it came from.
Okay, so Rise is an organisation that I formed last year. So it's been going just 12 months. So it's very much in its infancy. And the name Rise came from respect, inspire, support, and educate. And it's for professional female photographers. So I did go down just the female route on this. And I did take a lot of slack online for it. And that's all settled down now, people understanding why I've done it. And as I said, it is still in its infancy, and due to COVID and the whole industry as it's gone, it's still got to grow, but it has grown. And those members that I had right at the very beginning, they're still with me and going strong and love what I do.
Brilliant. And I know that while it's just for female members, some of the educators you brought in there are made as well. So it's not. But why did you go the female members only route? Was that nearly you saw a need to specialize in that, and it was actually part of it was positioning, marketing wise, that there was nobody else doing that, or what was there something deeper than that?
Yeah, no, there was a few reasons. I've been part of organisations where I wanted to make change as a female and bring females in the photography industry to the forefront. And I was flying the flag for women in the industry. And I do think I came to a bit of a block where women felt they weren't being heard, or if they were to ask a question, they felt like it was a bit of a silly question that they shouldn't be asking, or they didn't have confidence. And it goes back again, I think it then goes back against the nature of the brain and how it works. And I'm not blanketing everyone with the same, but where you have the technical ability and then you have the creative ability and that emotion. And from my experience and the women that I've spoke to, they're not there with the technical ability, and they're not really bothered about it. As long as they know how to work their camera, they're not bothered about the ins and outs of being technical. And often when they would post a question into forums and groups, they would get these technical answers back, and kind of responses that would say, what, seriously, you don't know that? Such a simple question. So I think they were feeling that they were being reprimanded for something that they were asking that they thought was a perfectly reasonable question to ask. So instead of asking that, they decided not to.
Right. It's interesting you should say that, because I have a very good friend, Kevin Jordan, in the US, and Kevin is third generation photographer. So his father was a photographer and his grandfather before him. And we're both members of XXV. So when we were in Italy 2 years ago on the XXV event, we were having a chat in a bar one night, a pirate bar. That's as much as we say about it. It was a pirate bar somewhere in Italy. And we're having a few drinks anyway. And of course, way too many drinks. But we start talking about this subject. And he said something to me, and it stuck with me ever since. And he went, Ronan, he said, my grandfather had to be a scientist because it was pre-digital and all the chemicals, and he printed his own stuff, and it was he was a scientist. He said, I have to be an artist, with an emotional connection to the client and their relationships to capture that. So I wonder, is there something in that, not that men are better scientists than women, I'm not saying that, but a lot in the past, a lot of scientific stuff was done primarily by men, and more of the emotional connection, important stuff was done by women. And I wonder, is this sort of transformation from analog to digital, is that some way associated with this? And now it is less scientific, and it's more about the ability to capture those relationships and anchor those relationships in your subjects. What's your thought on that? Is there anything in that, or am I just talking a whole load of codswallop?
Yeah, I'm not sure, to be honest, because I know some women that have been in the industry for many, many years and they still shoot on film. They love film, they know everything about it. I just think the world has moved on, to be honest, and along with that came digital. And I don't think that has a bearing on more women taking it up at all. I just think there's a lot more opportunities, and women know that they can do anything they want to do, really. I don't think it has anything to do with the digital and film era. I just think there are a lot more opportunities, and women want to get out in there and get them, to be honest.
Very good. So, can we talk then about what's your vision for Rise? Is it primarily a UK based organization, or are you looking worldwide with it, or where do you want to bring it?
Well, obviously we're based in the UK. Most of our members are the UK, but saying that, I've got members that are in France, South Africa, America, Singapore. So we have got members worldwide, and my vision for it was to be a global organisation, because I love the different cultures that bring the industry together. I think there's lots of different genres of photography that you can get elsewhere that you can't get in the UK. And I love seeing different forms of photography and what's on offer. And yeah, no, it's a global organisation, and that's what I wanted it to be.
That's great. And you mentioned that, it's not dealing with how to be a photographer. It's concentrating more on the business side, right?
Yeah. And I said, do you know what, Ronan? I don't know if you because you do business and you find this. I know that photographers always need to know, they need to know how to pose, they need to know the lighting, they need to know the camera. But how many workshops can you continually go on to do that with? What I've found is that photographers want help with a business. How do I go and find that client? How do I do my business plan? How do I find out who my ideal client is and creating that avatar? What do I do about promoting myself? How do I market myself for Christmas, Valentine's Day, and all the rest of it? Can we share what's going on in the industry? Who can we pull on and draw this out of? And it is more about business, really, and how to elevate the business side of things and get out there and earn money. Although we do share kind of the creative aspect as well, it is a lot more about the business side of photography.
And then obviously there's the community side as well, right?
Yeah, the community side is big, and I wanted it to be a community of women. It's a professional, so I have an open Facebook page. I also have a community members page, and that page is purely business, although it's all friendly. It's a great place to be. We all offer advice. It's a professional page. We don't go talking about what our children are doing next week or what we're doing at the weekend, or if we've had a bad kind of weekend with family. It's purely business, really, and how we all support each other within our own businesses. And if somebody's had a bad week within business, what can we do to help them kind of get over that and move on, and what could be done differently. It is about the business.
So what are you seeing? I know we're not post-COVID yet because we haven't defeated that silent enemy, but have you seen the challenges changing in this COVID world or this new reality compared to what it was like pre-COVID from your members? Or what are your members seeing on the ground?
Do you know what? It's really hard, isn't it? Especially like today, we've heard about the northeast of England going on a much stricter kind of lockdown again. And it's really hard to predict where this industry, which has been massively hit. I know photographers that have now come out of the industry, male and female, and it has been massively hit. I know weddings that have rescheduled from this year, and me personally doing weddings. Some of my weddings that have been booked rescheduled for April, they're now questioning whether that can go ahead. I think it's going to be an industry that takes a long time to recover, and we've got to find really how we can move on from that and how we can realign our businesses to still bring in money. And that's a hard one to predict. And what do you do to actually turn your business on its head and bring in that money?
Yes, it's certainly a challenge. And, you know, we saw it in the 2008, 2009 collapse. Like we had to call in the IMF here in Ireland, you know, to bail us out. But you
Yeah,
guys didn't have that in the UK, but it was still, you know, a big economic shock. And it took a long time to recover. But this is different, isn't it? It's an economic shock, not caused
yeah,
by typical economics, but because by a pandemic. So it's hard to
yeah,
know. You know, my own view, because we're trying to plan as well. Like we make in our photo value business, we make 13 million mounts a year, and the vast majority end up in the schools and the graduation industry. And they've been, you know, there was no leaver season, as we call it, when the children are leaving school in June, you know, May, June, July. That was all cancelled, and now all the graduations are cancelled. Well, they're not cancelled, we're told they're postponed. The universities are postponing them until next year, and they're saying next April hopefully we can do them. But it's the same with the weddings, right? We don't know where we're going to be next April unless there's, you know, it probably is going to require a vaccine.
yeah.
So it's really
And I
difficult to.
think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right there. And you talk about there being bailed out in the 2008-9. But what photographers are finding, especially in the UK, and I don't know what it's like where you are, Ronan, but a lot of photographers haven't had government help. There are those that have got high street studios that have had the UK government grants of you know, the £10,000, but now with 6 months on, 7 and coming into 8 months of that money isn't lasting, and a lot of photographers have actually missed out on that. And then you get the loan that they could have, the £50,000 loan, but obviously if they're not getting that business in, how are they ever going to pay that back? But then you get the photographers that haven't had any money whatsoever. And I really feel for this industry at the minute, because photographers are thinking, when are we ever actually going to get back to work, and what is normality going to look like?
Mm. Yes, it's definitely really challenging. And it was interesting. We had a conversation because, you know, I see in the forums too, photographers saying, "Oh, do I need to cut my prices now to get some business in?" And I'm going, "No, don't do that." You know, and we were sitting in the garden the other day, and Susan's mum was over, and she got her hair done during the week, and her hair, whatever she gets done, her cut and her color or whatever she was getting done, used to be €65, which is about £60, and it's gone up to €87. And I went, fair play to you. That's a business
Yeah.
person running that business, because, you know, we've got to think that way in photography as well. In that, you know, to get out of this, if we can do less volume and stuff, we've got to be business-like about it. And it's not about cutting your prices, it's about working out what's my new price got to be.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right there. I was going to say there's other industries that haven't cut their prices. So why should we do that? And I, for one, I haven't cut my prices. My corporate work is coming back in, and my clients aren't expecting to pay less for that. And I think as well, with a lot of these business and specifically corporate work, they're starting to run their businesses, they're starting to get back on track. And of course, the entertainment industry isn't back yet. And again, that's creative, isn't it? And people getting together. But a lot of these big companies, their business is getting back to normal, and they've still got the budgets to do that. In fact, some of them haven't spent their budgets. So they have got the money there to actually go ahead and have photography.
So do you think photographers like you who are sort of, you know, they've divested their business, so that, you know, because you've been doing weddings which are all getting postponed, but because you have that commercial aspect, that business is still available, do you think that's an important consideration for a photographer going forward, that they are in a number of different channels, to be able, if one's down, the other one might pick up the slack somewhere?
Yeah, I do think so. I've never been somebody who puts all my eggs in one basket. I've never done that. It was just something that I was taught being, when I was younger, my parents instilled in me. But so I have got that corporate side that's come back, and it is coming back. And I will actively start promoting that a lot more going forward. Now we're coming to the end of September and people are starting to settle a little bit more at work. But I do know people that are purely wedding photographers, and they're in a really sticky position at the minute because they don't know when that's going to come back to normal. But saying that, there are still weddings going ahead for 30, and those couples can't go away on honeymoon like they were doing. They're traveling around the UK on their staycation instead, and they've actually got more money to spend on products.
It's interesting you should say that, because I've been talking to some wedding photographers who've said just exactly that. That the weddings that have been shrunk from 150 people down to 30 or 40 people, or whatever that number is, that there's more money to spend, and they're finding out when they come in for the IPS that they're actually spending more on product.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's true. So I've just been brought a gin and tonic.
Oh, excellent! You're making me jealous now.
So that's why I'm smiling. That's why I'm smiling. It's just been put in front of me. How lovely. No, I think you're right there. There is this, people have managed to, one, save some money if they've been furloughed and they've been paid. One, they're not spending on big honeymoons. They're not spending on, as you said, from 100, they've now got 70 guests less. So the areas that they've saved on, they have got that money to invest in their photography. And I know that I did a wedding a couple of weeks ago, and it was really relaxed. It was lovely to go out and do. And I know that they've come back to me. They'd already booked to have an album, but they're now talking about having wall art. So it is one of those that I think, if you do your business right, which is where I go back to talking about the business of photography, if you position yourself right there, then there is still money within those weddings to be pushing the business side of it and actually saying, well, have you thought about XYZ on top? Parent albums, shoot your weddings differently. Think about products that you could be upselling within your weddings that you weren't necessarily going to be doing because they didn't have the budget to do it.
There you go. And I think that's great advice, Karen, because, quite often, because of all the doom and gloom, that's all we hear. So we nearly set ourselves in a mindset that they're not going to spend, when actually what's actually happening is they actually have more money to spend. So use this as an opportunity for the weddings that are going ahead, to sell that wall art and sell those additional products, whatever they might be.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And do you know what? I've gone back to clients as well. So use your database. We always say have a great database. You go back to those weddings, and those people that maybe didn't have products to start with, those have maybe saved money through lockdown and being furloughed or not going on holiday, and they might decide now to actually go ahead and get that album that they never got in the first place. So revisit those clients. Maybe they'll decide to have a family portrait shoot because they've saved money. So there's business opportunities there. You've just got to look outside the box.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Karen, I can't believe the hour's nearly up, but there's some important stuff we need to talk about.
Oh my goodness.
So you're heavily involved in the organizations as well. So you're involved in BIPP, but there was a recent appointment, right? Tell people about that.
Yeah, so I became a director of the British Institute of Professional Photography back in March, it was this year. And then, which I was delighted to do. I love being part of the Institute. But on the back of that as well, if you're a member of the Institute, you automatically get to be a member of the Federation of European Professional Photographers. And they were up for re-election for their board. So I was appointed director of the, it's short FEP, so the Federation of European Photographers. So that was really exciting to actually then take that leap overseas and get involved with Europe. but then it was really lovely to be then elected as their vice president, and that's the recent role that I've undertaken. So it's an
Congratulations.
absolute pleasure. Yeah, thank
Congratulations.
you.
So what's for FEP then? What is their vision and mission? What are they all about? And what, as vice president, what would you like to see happening?
So with that organisation, what they do is go to all these European countries that have got organisations like the British Institute, and their members become members, and everyone pulls their ideas together. So it's Europe working together to become one big organisation. So they support over 50,000 photographers. So it's really great to be involved with that. But the side of it that I'd like to see is a continuation of Rise, and to see more women rising to the top and becoming active in these organisations. And I think being a female and being elected as vice president has put me in a great position to be an advocate of that, really, and to fly the flag for women and get their voices heard within the industry, and give them a voice to speak. You know, we've all got the same voice. Just put yourself out there. And I think that is a lot of it with women, Ronan, that they are a little bit reticent to put themselves out there. And I think men are quite happy to do that, as women are a little bit more reserved and think, oh, I can't do that.
Yes, you can.
Maybe.
As a famous
Absolutely,
former
you can.
president of America said, yes, you can.
Yeah,
Yes, we can.
absolutely.
Absolutely, absolutely. So Karen, thank you so much for joining us. You're an inspiration to everybody. I have posted in the chat, let me see if there's any questions. I did post in the group a link to Rise, so you can see that in there in the group, guys. So do join Rise, reach out to Karen. You can see she's loads of great ideas. She's an inspiration. She's a go-doer. You know, there's no glass ceiling there for Karen. She's just smashing right through it. So thank Karen.
Thank you. And congratulations in the chat there. Congratulations to Kat, who's recently gained her fellowship.
Oh, congratulations. Well done.
Yes, that's fabulous. I love that. But I also want to say, Ronan, while we're on here, I'd like to say a massive thank you to you and 3XM, because you are our trade supporters within Rise, and you've helped us massively. And the content that you give our members, I can't thank you enough for having faith in Rise and coming on board and supporting and being one of our ambassadors. So thank you.
It's a pleasure, Karen. Delighted to do it. So I better let you go. You've got that gin and tonic, so I better let you go to your gin and tonic.
I know.
I'm really jealous because I'm trying to be good. I'm staying up because I love my red wine, and because I'm trying to lose weight, I set my objective to only have a glass of wine at the weekend, so only on a Friday or a Saturday night. So so I'm really jealous seeing you having a drink there now.
Oh, thank you. Well, this is a celebration of 2 days and great results for the Institute on the qualifications, and it's all come to an end and we're celebrating. So you've caught me on a great day.
Enjoy it and have one on me, and I can't wait till I'm celebrating with you again sometime soon.
I will. Thank you so much.
Bye everybody. Take care, stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you next Tuesday on the Think Tank. Bye for now. Thanks, Karen.